Working together to make a better community. We can create a brighter day.
Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guests today are Damon and Michah Dowbak. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm so excited because Damon and Michah are some of my oldest friends in Thunder Bay, and I've seen them go through many changes, and they've both just come back from Japan where they were launching an art show, and I'm kind of going, oh my gosh, you guys have to come and tell the world about your journeys, how you got there, and what's next. So let's go back in time. Tell us a little bit about your early days. Are you both Thunder Bay guys, or what's your history?
Yeah, born and raised Fort William, now living out in Kaministiquia, and spent all my life here.
And you've got a history in one of the kind of communities here in Thunder Bay with the Ukrainian.
Yeah, my heritage is Ukrainian, so I grew up in the Ukrainian community, and that was an early formative part of my artistic career. I was always involved in cultural events and everything from Ukrainian dancing to visual arts to music, so that all formed my early love of that. Yeah.
And part of my excitement having the both of you here is that you've got all those bases covered in a way, or not all of them, but you're a visual artist, you're a musician, you're talented in many ways, and your son Michah, I don't know if you inherit those things. Do they come in DNA, or is that,
I think it's like they seep in. So like, I remember growing up as a kid, and then, Damon would get really like particular about a certain shade of blue, and like how like this one is better than this one if it's gonna go here, and those types of things. Like that's really important in my art because I focus so much on color combinations and relationships. So it's definitely, I don't think it's genetic. I think it's all learned, and you mimic what you see other people doing. You see what your parents do. You learn the lessons, and I think I just learned a lot of lessons about music and art, and then that became. I tried to get a quote unquote real job. I have a degree from a university, and it's a valuable degree that I don't use because I just ended up being better at art than anything else. So it just seemed like the logical path.
Right on.
Yeah.
And it's a daily process, so I don't think a moment goes by when I don't think about the aesthetics or the art or what's happening around me. And so whether it's the music that's playing on the stereo that influences Michah in the earlier days, or the music that Michah plays now that influences me, or how you maintain your household, how you decorate your house, how you work in the field outside in your garden. It's all relevant to the process of being an artist.
And some of our viewers may not know you, but when I introduce you, especially when I'm out of town, I go, Damon Dowbak is like the best mandolin player there is. That's how I see it. And in Thunder Bay, you may not have that status, but for so many years, it's just been like, wow, how can he be so good?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of mandolin players in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm only one of them.
I don't know that many, I guess.
I appreciate the compliment. Where were you going with that one?
In a way, I guess, you talk about Damon being influenced by all those things around you, by the visual, by the auditory, I don't know what other senses. And I'm wondering about that interplay between music and visual art, which are the two things really, I guess, we're focusing on today.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's prevalent in both our lives. So I guess there's a different, the music is something that is easily shared amongst a group of people, like a small group, a concert hall, a coffee house, your family. It's something that's really shared, and people become involved in it. Whereas the visual art side is a more solitary kind of process, where you go out on your own and you're looking inside of yourself as you look at the external world, and you're trying to develop ideas, and it's a real alone process, and then you bring that out after you've gone through the process, and you bring out your work for people to see. But the music is like spontaneous, and it's a real group participation thing for me. Yeah.
Michah.
Creatively, I find that they work as like kind of a balance. Like sometimes you're more, it's kind of like the music is like you're saying, it's more of the extrovert, and the visual art is a bit more of the introvert. And like I find that when I'm feeling a certain way, I'll get inspired to make more music. And then if I'm not in that mood, then instead of doing nothing, I have the visual art to go to. So I can bounce between the two in a kind of like a symbiotic, kind of like balanced lifestyle kind of way.
It's a way of using your energy too, because they both require different energy. So you may have just burned up all your energy to do visual art, and you need something more freer or looser. Or
one inspires the other too. Like going out and having fun, and like whether I'm touring with my band or just DJing a club, or just jamming around a campfire, those are all different bits of inspiration. But that's like tiring and a lot of energy. Then you go and recharge, and then you use all that information to kind of inform visual art. Sometimes.
What I'm kind of getting a sense of finding a balance in your life, and that those different aspects give you different energy or whatever, and you don't want to overload on any one of them. You want to be able to show the different sides of your
you also have
creativity.
You have to constantly be ready to catch the idea when it comes at you too. So it's about always kind of like everything I do is informed by my art. So like, you're always ready to have a melody pop in your head, or see a new instrument, or kind of like look at a landscape and see a new frame, or see a new color combination and take a quick picture on your phone and be like, oh, I want to do something with those two colors. So it's really about kind of always thinking about it constantly. Then that's how the great ideas happen, is because you were there to catch them.
And Michah, you mentioned touring with your band. You've had some international success as a musician as well.
Yeah,
Tell me a little
exactly.
bit about that.
So I've toured with Coleman Hell and Latch and the whole Sideways crew, and those guys. We've done so much together, and it's super exciting, and it's a whole other realm of art and success, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too. It's super rewarding, and there's all kinds of different challenges you kind of find yourself in, and I love just kind of like jumping into a world and trying to like figure out the puzzle of how to move through it.
Well, we have to take a short break, and we'll find a little bit more about how that puzzle fits together.
Great.
Please stay with us. Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guests today are a father and son combo, Damon and Michah Dowbak. Welcome back, guys.
Hey.
So you've both just had shows, gallery openings, whatever, recently. I was at your show last week, Damon. Tell us a little bit about your show and where it is and how people can see it.
Yeah, I currently have an exhibition on at In Common Restaurant on 40 Cumberland Street South here in Thunder Bay. And it'll be on until January 10th. So it's on for a good long stint up through Christmas. And it's a show that it's titled No Phase. I don't really know why it's titled No Phase.
I think we just came up with it in the living room one
Yeah,
day.
we just had
Throwing around words at each other.
Yeah, see, I'm a visual artist, and words are not always my top priority. So when I'm asked to put a title to something, maybe something a little bit, you can't quite figure out what it means. Anyways, primarily through my career, I've been a stained glass artist, and I've done all kinds of work in stained glass. Residences, churches, all kinds of commissions. But I really started out as a painter and a photographer in my early years. So this show is kind of like bringing back those kinds of works. And No Phase, because it's really not any one phase of any of my work, because in the show there are works represented through photography, represented through painting on canvas, on drawing, pen and ink, graphite. So there's all these different styles and mediums that are used, and sometimes they're combined in different ways, like I'll combine photographs with painting. So I'm really looking at how all these mediums work together and the kinds of ideas I can express through that. So you can come down and check out the show there during their hours at In Common.
So, Damon, so you talk about, in a way, combining different elements in your work. When I was looking at the show, there were all kinds of different pieces, whether it's different fabric or pictures or painting on top of paint. Like, where did that get you? I'm kind of going, geez, you're kind of going down a journey when you create a piece. Maybe even like there's this one called Sound Waves, which kind of includes kind of some musical references there as well.
Yeah, that piece is very much a collage piece of, I think it partly comes from working in glass and having to cut glass to fit certain sizes. So I'm just transferring that over. But not necessarily true, because I did collage before I did glass work. But collage work can present different ideas and different views of at the same time. And part of the interesting part of it is layering and presenting multiple views or multiple dimensions, which is also something that Michah brings forth in his work. So the Sound Waves is in some way a structured piece, but it's also very fluid in the way the paint and the material flows across the paper, and the method, the process that creates the work. So and then it's all combined and come up with it.
If you take a bunch of different pieces and you have all these kind of like elements, whether it's like the photographs Damon uses or the pieces of like weather-beaten painted canvas, and you can kind of like, you can produce a bunch of elements, and then when you bring them together, you can create like all kinds of different like kind of like infinite combinations of those like colors. So like by creating these kind of like multimedia things, you can really create a world that like never existed anywhere else before. So it's a fun way to like bring colors and textures and forms together.
I know over the years I've always been really affected in a positive way by a lot of your paintings and the colors that you use. And I don't know if abstract's the right word, and I look and kind of go, I don't know what the meaning is here, but I feel good looking at it. And the piece, another piece, you've got Diamond Moon, similarly, where you're using different colors, not sometimes like those real bright ones back in the day, but other more subtle colors. Where are you going with that?
Well, Diamond Moon, you wouldn't find there's only a very minimal color difference because it's all mostly graduated tones of blacks and whites in Diamond Moon, as opposed to the other one. So I really flip between, because I have a real big love for black and white photography. So and the gradations of color and the infinite number of grays that exists, but I also love color. So yeah, so to your point about color provides, if you can create a harmonious set of colors that then will fill you with a positive vibration, that'll fill you with you'll feel good looking at it, then you've achieved something. Yeah.
I often think about with like color combinations, like there often is like something with art, people like are like, oh, there's like no right or wrong, but like with color combinations, there really is a zone where you lock it in and it feels great. And like the more colors you try to bring in, the more complicated building that relationship becomes. But it's possible, and when you can figure it all out,
I mean,
feels
they
really good.
all the colors have different vibrations, and some of them are more harmonious with each other. Some are contrasty, complementary. So and intensity. So there's all these technical things that you have to actually sort out to create that. I mean, you can make a muddy mess pretty easily.
Oh, I know about that.
But if you can move to a place where what you are presenting has a really harmonious feel, then I think that's pretty good.
So, we're talking about, in a way, the vibrations of the color and how it feels. So, and you talked about the visual art as more a solitary endeavor. So you've reached a point, I'm assuming, in your work where you feel like you're happy with the energy that piece is showing, but you're still solitary. How does that translate then when you put that out in public? Do you get a feeling of how people feel, or it's gone and you're left with your own?
Yeah, you're mostly. I'm involved in the process of creating that, and when I put it out into the public, then it's for the public to interpret. It's for somebody else to interpret. I know what my intentions are, and if people find similarity in what I'm presenting, then that's great. But I don't. I'm finished with the work at that point. But here's where the interesting part of the music comes in, when you can then try to present those two ideas together. And so that's where I'm kind of trying to go, where I've been trying to go, is eventually to produce something in the future that's going to be musical and visual at the same time. So,
all right,
so because they're both related, right?
We need to take another short break. Please stay with us, and we'll find out a little bit more about that future endeavor. Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guests today are Michah and Damon Dowbak. Michah, we're over in Japan, launching a one-person show, Afterlife Show. Did I get that right?
Afterlife World, yeah.
Afterlife World, sorry.
Yeah.
So this just sounds so exciting. Like, tell me a little bit about your show in Japan and whatever kind of pieces around that.
Yeah, well, I teamed up with the Diesel Art Gallery in Tokyo. So it's in Shibuya, so it's like kind of downtown Tokyo. If you could put one part of Tokyo to be a downtown, it's such a vast city. So yeah, I have 15 new works up there and 5 old ones, plus a video screen and a full lighting installation. I think I gave you a few pictures of that there. And it's a really immersive kind of art exhibit with big kind of like dichroic panels hanging all throughout the exhibit, creating all kinds of cool reflections in the room. And all the pieces are printed on like an acrylic board. And so it's digital illustrations printed out, but they're just printed out on the one copy on the wall. So it's really, that's it. It's kind of trying to treat it like a painting. So I make it digitally, but it only exists in the one form up in the gallery.
And some of the pictures I've seen, some of the works are hanging in the middle that you can
Those
also,
are the reflective panels. Okay. So all the works are on the walls. But
okay.
a lot of my art is kind of like overlaid realities on top of each other, where I take two pictures and kind of integrate them on top of each other. And so that's the art itself. But then when you're in the space, you can see the reflections of the other art. So it's kind of like a play on it, where you see the reflection of the art and it kind of compounds the idea of these kind of multiple realities existing at once on top of each other. I think that makes sense.
So tell me a little bit about that art. So you said it's digital art. What does that mean?
Yeah, so my general process is photography, and so I'll do a bunch of street photography and kind of like get a bunch of like different assets, and then I'll go into, I use Procreate on my iPad a lot, or Photoshop or Lightroom, and then I'll kind of like dissect pieces of those photographs and create like kind of a collage, and then I'll do the illustration of that collage. So it's a really like, just like Damon's work, it's like a lot of mixed media, and I kind of like finalize it into an illustration, but it really comes from a bunch of different places and sources. So it's flattened, but it is mixed media in its creation process.
So I'm wondering about, in a way, digital art.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's shared on social media, it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
And I can just print that out, and I'm kind of going, oh, look, here's...
Well, so my main place that I actually put all my art is just on Instagram. So that's only like a 2-inch little picture. So if you print that out, it'll look terrible.
It doesn't really work.
So the actual like hard copies, high res, I keep those very protected, so they don't exist anywhere. So I have noticed a few Russian websites illegally printing and selling my work, though. So
oh my gosh!
If you want to get some illegal copies, just go to Russia.
Well, let me ask you about this one, a grain of sand.
Yeah. So
tell me, we'll put that up on the screen. Tell me a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah. So this is a really good example of me putting a bunch of structures all into one picture. A grain of sand, it's probably about 8 different photographs where I go and individually cut out different buildings and shrines and castles, and then I kind of put them all back into one kind of solidified image. And that one, it has the shrine from Miyajima Island, that's Osaka Castle, and then just a bunch of residential buildings from around Japan. And that's there to kind of show multiple different buildings and structures existing in the same place at one time that never actually, it's a combination that never really happened. And so it's like kind of maybe different things that could have happened in the same location over different parallel realities, or maybe it's just a nice thing to look at, a nice combination, a nice balance of structures. So you can kind of read into it however you want to, but a lot of my art is about creating combinations that never existed in our current reality.
But then you add color to those photos as well.
Yeah.
Your work is a lot of vibrant colors, it seems.
Yeah, so a lot of my stuff, like when you're like scrolling on Instagram, it's kind of like a battle for your eyeballs. And I find that if I do the right color combinations, you can really get people to stop. So just like Dad, I like focus on putting together all these different combinations in a really like pleasurable way. And so I just spend a lot of time locking in those colors and kind of really focusing on that. And this, a grain of sand, is a lot of like pinks and purples and like kind of subtle blues. And those all just, it's a really kind of warm, kind of like comforting feeling. So that piece is really just about kind of like relaxing, you know.
So in the last minute or so, the other part for me is okay, you get this show in Japan and you take your family with you to support, to involve in all different ways. I mean,
Yeah,
I
well,
just kind of get all warm and cuddly when I hear that stuff.
Damon helped produce a lot of it too, and we all went down. Josh, Damon, Estelle, and Tuya. We all went on a trip to Japan. It was great.
It's a wonderful time and a wonderful experience to see the fruition of of Michah's work. And when we walked into the gallery, it was just awesome, incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, one proud papa there,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been a real pleasure to have both you guys on the show. Now, in terms of following up, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, well, for me, you can go down to the gallery and take a look, and I have an email address that you can, kliwik@tbaytel.com.
We'll put that up on the
Yeah.
screen. And Mish,
The best way to see my art and contact me is just Instagram. It's at mad.dog.jones. So
and that's your handle on...
that's my Instagram handle.
And
And
that-
yeah, so
that-
Mad Dog Jones is kind of like my alias that I use for my art. So some people call me Mr. Jones, but I don't know. I don't really go by that. My name's still Michah, but just a bit of it's easier to spell, you know.
Thanks so much for joining me on the show today, and I encourage folks to check out the art of both Damon and Michah Dowbak.
Working together to make a better community. We can create a brighter day.